The assembly will now come to order. The chief clerk will call the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson, Assemblywoman Backus, Assemblywoman Bilbra Axelrod, Assemblywoman Brown May, Assemblyman Carter, present. Assemblywoman Cohen, Assemblywoman Considine, Assemblyman DeLong, Assemblywoman Dickman, Assemblyman De Silva, Assemblywoman Duran, Assemblywoman Gallant, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, Assemblywoman Gorlow, Assemblyman Gray, Assemblyman Gurr, Assemblyman Hafen, Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Hardy, Assemblyman Hibbets, Assemblywoman Howdigi, Assemblywoman Kasama, Assemblyman Koenig, Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch, Assemblywoman Marzola, Assemblyman MacArthur, Assemblywoman Brittany Miller, Assemblyman C.H. Miller, Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, Assemblywoman Mosca, Assemblywoman Newby, Assemblyman Nguyen, Assemblyman O'Neill, Assemblyman Ortlicker, Assemblywoman Peters, Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong, Assemblywoman Taylor, Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Torres, Assemblyman Watts, Assemblyman Urick, Speaker Yeager.
Here. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May the record reflect we have 42 members present.
The record shall so reflect. We have 42 members present. That means we do have a quorum. Would members of the assembly and guests please rise? This afternoon we have the prayer by President Rajan Zed, Universal Society of Hinduism in Reno.
I will again request, I will end the prayer with Om. When I end it, I appreciate it if you can repeat after me, please. Om Bhurvavah Svah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who is inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Vardatam na sacha savam sumati bhutu asme avistam diya jigratam puram di jajasam arya vanusam arati. May that good intention inside us grow and become a means of restraining the low thoughts. May these well-reflected and comprehended thoughts move and spread out to rescue those awaiting to be released from the malignant ones. Anapeksha susir daksha udasino gata vyatha sarva ramba parityagi yo madva kata same priya. The devotee who is detached, pure, efficient, impartial, never anxious, selfless in all undertakings is very dear to God. Badram kame bi srunu yama deva badram pase mak sabir jajatra sathir air anges tustu Vamsas tanubi vyasema deva hitam yad ahu. May we, O God, hear what is good for all. May we see only what is good for all. May we serve you all our life. May we be used to spread your peace on earth. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. Order of Business 2, reading and approval of the journal.
Carson City, Tuesday, April 25, 2023. Assembly called to order at 12:54 p.m. Mr. Speaker, presiding roll call, all present per by the chaplain, Rajan Zed.
Assemblywoman Howdiggy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move to end with the reading of the journal and allow the Speaker and Chief Clerk to make any necessary corrections and additions.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. Order of Business 7, messages from the Senate.
Senate Chamber, Carson City, April 25, 2023. To the Honorable the Assembly, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed Senate Bills 25-251, 323, and I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed as submitted Senate Bills 620, 38, 40, 57, 59, 60, 63, 66, 78, 82, 92, 105, 114, 119, 147, 148, 155, 164, 183, 235, 269, 280, 293, 294, 298, 303, 433. And I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Senate on this day passed as amended Senate Bills 35, 133, 292, 310, 314, 321, 328, 333, 334, 335, 336, 343, 344, 346, 349, 355, 359, 370, 384, 391, 393, 394, 404, 406, 407, 415, 417, 422, 427, 429, 434, 436, 437. And I have the honor to inform the honorable body that the Senate on this day passed as amended Senate Bills 39, 61, 194, 243, 296, 348, 352, 423. Sherry Rodriguez, Assistant Secretary of the Senate.
Order of Business 9, introduction, first reading, and reference of bills.
Senate Bill 6, introduced by the Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, enacted into public records revising the circumstances under which the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles is authorized to release certain personal information to a reporter or editorial employee, prohibiting a person who requests and receives personal information from the department from selling such information except under certain insurance purposes, prohibiting the director from releasing personal information for the purpose of sale except for certain insurance purposes, and providing other measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 20, introduced by the Committee on Government Affairs and Accolade to Counties, revising provisions relating to the process for filling a vacancy in the Office of County Commissioner, and providing other measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 25, introduced by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs and Accolade and Public Works, requiring the State Public Works Board of the State Public Works Division of the Department of Administration to consider certain plans for office space and making certain recommendations to the governor and the legislature, requiring the division and departments and agencies of the state to cooperate in implementing and maintaining certain plans for office space and providing other measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 35, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services and Accolade to Controlled Substances, establishing the crimes of mid-level and high-level trafficking in illicitly manufactured fentanyl, any derivative of fentanyl, and any mixture which contains fentanyl or any derivative of fentanyl, requiring to the extent that money is available the establishment of certain programs to provide certain offenders or prisoners who have a substance use disorder with medication-assisted treatment, providing penalties and providing other measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 38, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Accolade to Crimes, prohibiting certain employees of or volunteers at a school from contacting or communicating with a pupil under certain circumstances, prohibiting certain employees of or volunteers at a school from engaging in conduct intended to cause or encourage a pupil to engage in sexual conduct, transmit, or distribute a sexual image of a pupil, or engage in certain other behavior, providing that certain crimes committed against pupils constitute sexual offenses for the purposes of various statutes, providing that certain persons who are convicted of engaging in such conduct are subject to various statutory provisions relating to sex offenders, revising provisions relating to the licensure and employment of persons convicted of engaging in certain prohibited conduct with pupils, providing penalties, and providing other measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 39, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary and Accolade to Indigent Services, providing that certain records received by the Board of Indigent Defense Services and the Department of Indigent Defense Services, or the department which are protected by the attorney-client privilege, are confidential, providing that certain records received by the Board of the Department relating to the conduct of an attorney are confidential under certain circumstances, providing that certain records which are voluntarily disclosed to the Department remain protected by the attorney-client privilege under certain circumstances, and providing the measures properly thereto. Senate Bill 40, introduced by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure and Accolade to Manufactured Housing, changing the name of the document issued by the Housing Division of the Department of Business and Industry, indicating the ownership of a manufactured home, mobile home, manufactured manufactured building or commercial coach or factory-built housing from a certificate of ownership to a certificate of title, authorizing the administrator of the division to issue certain documents in electronic form, revising requirements for certain transactions involving the ownership of a manufactured home, mobile home, manufactured building or commercial coach or factory-built housing, revising eligibility requirements for persons seeking assistance from the account for affordable housing, revising provisions governing local ordinances concerning the placement of certain manufactured homes, and providing other matters properly thereto. Senate Bill 57, introduced by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to insurance, revising requirements relating to the submission of certain information to the Commissioner of Insurance by certain persons regulated by the Commissioner, revising provisions concerning the confidentiality of certain records and information, revising requirements for the delivery of certain notices and other documents by electronic means, revising requirements for the conduct of certain hearings before the Commissioner, revising provisions relating to the imposition of certain fees, revising requirements for the issuance and renewal of certain licenses and certificates, revising provisions relating to administrators prohibiting certain insurers from taking certain actions concerning prescription drugs, revising provisions relating to annuities, imposing certain requirements on persons involved in the sale of prepaid contracts for funeral or burial services, revising certain requirements relating to captive insurers, revising procedures for the delinquency proceedings against an insurer, revising provisions relating to bail agents, bail enforcement agents, bail solicitors, and general agents, making various other changes relating to insurance, and providing other matters properly thereto. Senate Bill 59, introduced by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to vessels, revising certain crimes relating to the operation of a vessel while under the influence of alcohol or a prohibited substance, revising certain terminology, clarifying that mechanically propelled personal hydrofoils, motorized surfboards, and vessels equipped with both a sail and motor are subject to certain requirements governing power-driven vessels, making certain provisions governing vessels applicable to governmental entities, requiring the sailing vessel to be numbered, revising certain class categories for vessels, revising provisions governing the removal of an abandoned vessel, revising the prohibition on operating a power-driven vessel under certain circumstances, authorizing a court to prohibit a person from operating any vessel on the interstate waters of this state under certain circumstances, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly thereto. Senate Bill 60, introduced by the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to elections, revising provisions relating to mail ballots, revising provisions relating to a recount and contest of a presidential election, setting forth a specific form for a declaration of candidacy for an independent candidate for partisan office, revising the methods for paying certain filing fees, revising provisions governing members of election boards, revising provisions relating to when candidates may be declared elected at a primary election, revising provisions relating to the form of certain ballots, revising the deadline for the hearing of an election contest, revising provisions relating to risk-limiting audits, revising provisions relating to an application to pre-register or register to vote, revising prohibitions relating to tampering or interfering with certain election equipment or computer programs, requiring the Secretary of State to adopt by regulation a cyber incident response plan for elections, revising the deadline by which a withdrawal of candidacy must be presented by certain candidates, revising the definition of uniform service voter, revising provisions relating to the limit on contributions to a candidate for office, delaying the effective date of certain provisions relating to automatic voter registration, repealing certain provisions relating to elections, making various other changes relating to elections, providing a penalty, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 61, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to crimes providing that the holding of an account in joint tenancy does not in and of itself convey to the persons named on the account legal ownership of the account and the deposits and proceeds of the account in a manner that would preclude such a person from committing or being prosecuted for exploitation involving the control or conversion of any deposits or proceeds of the account, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 63, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to Judicial Department of State Government, making various changes relating to policies and procedures of the Judicial Department, authorizing a judge to hold court by means of remote communication in certain circumstances, requiring the Nevada Supreme Court to prescribe certain policies and procedures relating to the Judicial Department by rule, authorizing a judge or justice of the peace to have a partner or associate who practices law in the state under certain circumstances, revising the duties of the court administrator, replacing the term regulation with rule for purposes of certain provisions of law relating to the Judicial Department, revising provisions relating to court interpreters, codifying in statute language from the Nevada Constitution relating to the expiration of the term of office for a justice appointed to fill a vacancy on the Nevada Supreme Court, revising provisions concerning the provision of certain resources to the Supreme Court and the district courts, providing that certain orders for protection issued in another state are not subject to certain requirements to be given full faith and credit in this state, repealing obsolete provisions relating to the Judicial Department, repealing various provisions relating to court seals, qualifications of certain employees and reports, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 66, introduced by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to public safety, establishing certain circumstances under which a person is disqualified from operating a commercial motor vehicle, requiring a court to notify the Department of Motor Vehicles if a person is convicted of certain offenses, prohibiting an employer from allowing a person to operate a commercial motor vehicle under certain circumstances, requiring the Department to adopt certain regulations to comply with certain federal regulations, requiring the Department to furnish full information regarding a driving record to certain persons upon request, revising provisions relating to railroad grade crossings, revising provisions concerning the crime of involuntary servitude, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 78, introduced by Senator Doñate, Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., an act relating to property, establishing and revising various definitions relating to property, establishing provisions relating to fees charged by landlords to prospective tenants, prohibiting the landlords from transferring, selling, assigning, or reporting to certain agencies information concerning amounts owed by tenants to landlords, establishing provisions relating to circumstances under which a landlord changes his or her agent, broker, or property management company, making various changes relating to fees, fines, deposits, and costs paid by tenants, requiring rental agreements to include a grace period for the late payment of rent, requiring a tenant to be served with advance notice of increases in certain fees, fines, and costs, revising provisions relating to agents of attorneys who serve certain notices relating to evictions, revising provisions relating to representation in small claims actions, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 82, introduced by Senator Daley, an act relating to public works, revising provisions relating to the use of apprentices on public works, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 92, introduced by Senators Doñate et al., Assemblywoman Marzola et al., an act relating to sidewalk vendors, establishing certain requirements for the regulation of sidewalk vendors by the governing body of certain counties and cities, requiring a local board of health to adopt certain regulations relating to sidewalk vendors who sell food, creating the task force on safe sidewalk vending, setting forth the membership and duties of the task force on safe sidewalk vending, providing penalties, and providing any matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 105, introduced by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, and act relating to the Department of Corrections, making the department subject to the provisions of the Nevada Administrative Procedure Act for purposes of adopting certain regulations and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 114, introduced by Senator Flores, and act relating to the Nevada Interscholastic Activities Association, prohibiting the association from taking adverse action against a person or school for certain activities, revising provisions governing the eligibility of pupils who transfer schools to participate and practice in a sanctioned sport or other interscholastic event, revising provisions governing the process of appealing certain decisions to the executive director of the association, authorizing the appeal of certain decisions and orders made pursuant to the regulations adopted by the association to the State Board of Education, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 119, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, and act relating to health care, revising provisions governing the circumstances under which certain insurers are required to provide reimbursement for services provided through telehealth in the same amount as services provided in person or through other means, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 133, introduced by Senators Daley et al., Assemblyman Yeager et al., an act relating to elections, prohibiting a person from creating or serving in a false slate of presidential electors or conspiring to create or serve in a false slate of presidential electors, prohibiting the state or local government from appointing a public office or employing a person convicted of such an offense, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 147, introduced by Senators Lang et al., an act relating to employment, requiring the payment of certain wages and compensation to an employee when an employer places the employee on certain work status, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 148, introduced by Senators Lang et al., an act relating to education, prohibiting a local school's precinct from employing or otherwise procuring the services of certain personnel for a school, revising provisions relating to the selection of certain personnel by the principal of a local school precinct, providing that the superintendent of a large school district is responsible for making certain personnel decisions, authorizing certain uses of a year-end balance by a local school precinct under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 155, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, an act relating to homeless persons, revising provisions relating to certain crimes committed by homeless persons and providing other matters appropriately relating thereto. Senate Bill 164, introduced by Senator Spearman, Ridal, Assemblyman De Silva, an act relating to special license plates, revising provisions governing the distribution of fees collected for the issuance or renewal of special license plates indicating support for the Divine Nine and providing other matters appropriately relating thereto. Senate Bill 183, introduced by Senator Stone et al., Assemblyman O'Neill et al., an act relating to pharmacy, establishing requirements governing the maintenance of secure drug take-back bins for the collection and destruction of unused drugs, providing that entities that maintain a secure drug take-back bin in accordance with such requirements are not subject to certain discipline for certain injuries and harms, and providing other matters appropriately relating thereto. Senate Bill 194, introduced by Senators Orenshaw et al., an act relating to insurance requiring certain insurers to use evidence-based guidelines when developing a step therapy protocol, requiring such insurers to create a process by which an attending practitioner and an insured are authorized to apply for an exemption from a step therapy protocol, requiring such insurers to grant such an exemption in certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 235, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to criminal procedure, revising provisions relating to pretrial release hearings, authorizing a court to impose additional conditions of release on a person under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 243, introduced by Senators Wynn et al., Assemblyman Torres et al., an act relating to catalytic converters, prohibiting certain acts relating to used catalytic converters under certain circumstances, establishing requirements relating to transactions involving used catalytic converters, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 251, introduced by Senator Flores, an act relating to school districts, revising provisions governing the authority of a large school district to negotiate certain conditions of employment, revising provisions governing mandatory subjects of collective bargaining relevant to school districts, and providing other matters appropriately there too. Senate Bill 269, introduced by Senator Orenshaw, an act relating to cruelty to animals, prohibiting a person from restraining a dog during any time in which a heat advisory, excessive heat warning, wind chill warning, or winter storm warning has been issued for the area, eliminating from provisions relating to animal cruelty certain exemptions that authorize a dog to be restrained in a certain manner or maintained in certain enclosures, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 280, introduced by Senator Wynn, an act relating to health care, requiring a hospital to provide for the insertion of certain long-acting reversible contraception if requested by a patient giving birth at a hospital, limiting the amount a hospital or provider of health care may require an insurer to pay for long-acting reversible contraception under certain circumstances, prohibiting an insurer from refusing to cover the insertion of certain contraceptive devices at a hospital immediately after an insured gives birth, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 292, introduced by Senator Pizzina, an act relating to education, providing that certain principals are employed at will, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 293, introduced by Senators Doniati and Daly, an act relating to energy, revising certain contractual requirements for an agreement for the purchase or lease of a distributed generation system, and a power purchase agreement imposing various requirements on solar installation companies, revising the definition of distributed generation system, prohibiting a person from engaging in certain activities relating to residential photovoltaic systems unless the person is licensed by the State Contractors Board or is an employee of such a person, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 294, introduced by Senators Doniati et al., an act relating to firearms, requiring a licensed dealer to provide a locking device capable of securing a firearm with each sale or transfer of a firearm, requiring a licensed gun dealer to post a notice on the premises which informs a buyer that the unlawful storage of a firearm may result in imprisonment or a fine, requiring the Board of Trustees of each school district and the governing body of each charter school to include certain provisions related to active assailants and a plan for responding to a crisis, emergency, or suicide, requiring certain school police officers to receive training in active assailant movement techniques, requiring the Department of Health and Human Services to develop and implement a state firearm storage education campaign, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 296, introduced by Senators Harris et al., Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., an act relating to traffic stops, prohibiting a peace officer from issuing a citation for certain violations relating to motor vehicles unless the violation is discovered when the vehicle is halted or its driver is arrested for another alleged violation or offense, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 298, introduced by the Senate Committee on Health and Human Services, an act relating to residential facilities for groups, prescribing certain grounds for disciplinary action against a residential facility for groups, prohibiting certain persons from serving as the representative of a resident of a residential facility for groups for purposes relating to an involuntary discharge, imposing requirements governing certain contracts between a resident and a residential facility for groups, prohibiting the involuntary discharge of a resident of a residential facility for groups, except for certain reasons, imposing requirements governing the procedure for such an involuntary discharge, requiring the state long-term care ombudsman to provide certain assistance concerning such a discharge, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 303, introduced by Senators John Darrell, Luke Biddle, and Arc Lane to motor vehicles, providing that it is an unfair act or practice for a manufacturer to not compensate a dealer fairly for warranty work or recall service or repair, or to violate certain provisions, setting forth a process for calculating the rate at which a manufacturer must compensate a dealer for warranty work or a recall service or repair, requiring the Director of the Department of Motor Vehicles to decide certain disputes between a dealer and manufacturer relating to the payment of compensation to a dealer for warranty work or a recall service for repair, making various other changes relating to motor vehicles, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 310, introduced by Senators Goicoechea et al. And Arc Lane to dentistry, providing for the licensure and regulation of expanded function dental assistants, creating a special endorsement for dental hygienists to practice restorative dental hygiene, providing for the regulation of the administration of local anesthesia and laser radiation by a dental hygienist or dental therapist, authorizing a dental hygienist who possesses certain qualifications to prescribe and dispense certain drugs, authorizing a public health dental hygienist to authorize an expanded function dental assistant or dental assistant to perform certain tasks under certain circumstances, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 314, introduced by Senator Lang, Assemblyman Carter, and Arc Lane to energy, revising a definition relating to certain renewable energy facilities, revising provisions governing the establishment by the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada of biennial targets for the procurement of energy source systems by certain electric utilities, requiring the Commission to reevaluate the existing biennial targets, eliminating an obsolete provision relating to the establishment of such targets, establishing requirements for the installation of electrochemical energy storage systems, authorizing a person who provides a program of training on the installation of electrochemical energy storage systems to request that the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Growth and Infrastructure review the program, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 321, introduced by Senators Krasner et al., Assemblyman Thomas et al., and Arc Lane to evidence, prohibiting a law enforcement agency or forensic laboratory from taking certain actions relating to the DNA profile and DNA record of a survivor of sexual assault, expanding certain prohibitions against the use of certain evidence secured in connection with an investigation or prosecution of a sexual assault, requiring certain entities to conduct an audit of certain biological specimens, DNA profiles, and DNA records to the extent money is available, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 323, introduced by Senators Severs, Gansert, and Hansen, and Arc Lane to peace officers, requiring the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission to adopt certain regulations concerning the recruitment and selection of Category 3 peace officers from other states or the federal government, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 328, introduced by Senators Titus and Wynn, and Arc Lane to cannabis, eliminating the exemption of the Cannabis Compliance Board from the provisions of the Nevada Administrative Procedures Act, revising procedures governing disciplinary proceedings conducted by the board, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 333, introduced by Senator Neal, and Arc Lane to virtual currency, requiring a virtual currency business to register with the Commissioner of Financial Institutions before engaging in virtual currency business activity with or on behalf of a resident of the state, creating the virtual currency recovery account, authorizing the Commissioner to impose a civil penalty on a virtual currency business that engages in certain conduct, authorizing the Commissioner to award payments of restitution to certain residents who are victims of fraud committed by a virtual currency business, requiring a virtual currency business to provide certain disclosures to a resident before engaging in virtual currency business activity with or on behalf of the resident, prohibiting a person from engaging in certain conduct relating to the solicitation of virtual currency business activity, prohibiting a virtual currency business from engaging in certain advertisements or promotions, prohibiting a domestic insurer from investing money allocated in certain accounts of virtual currency, and providing other matters properly named thereto. Senate Bill 334, introduced by Senator Spearman et al., and Arc Lane to energy, authorizing an energy storage system that retains, stores, and delivers energy through a system that uses only green hydrogen for the purposes of meeting certain biennial storage targets, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 335, introduced by Senator Orangel, an act relating to property, authorizing tenants subject to certain eviction proceedings to assert certain affirmative defenses relating to rental assistance and establishing procedures relating thereto, authorizing a justice court to establish a diversion program for certain tenants subject to an action for summary eviction, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 336, introduced by Senators Orangel and Stone, an act relating to healthcare, exempting certain conduct of certain practitioners of healing arts practicing within their authorized scope of authority from provisions governing certain practitioners of the other healing arts, enacting provisions governing the certification and regulation of certified registered nurse anesthetist, authorizing a certified registered nurse anesthetist to order, prescribe, possess, and administer controlled substances, poisons, dangerous drugs, and devices under certain circumstances, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 343, introduced by Senators Canzaro et al., an act relating to controlled substances, establishing a crime of low-level trafficking in illicitly manufactured fentanyl, any derivative of fentanyl, and any mixture which contains fentanyl or any derivative of fentanyl, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 344, introduced by Senator Neal, an act relating to education, prohibiting certain practices that impede public comments at meetings of boards of trustees of a large school district and local school precincts, requiring large school districts to undergo certain audits regardless of the availability of certain funds, prescribing certain requirements for obtaining a license to serve as a substitute teacher, requiring evaluations for certain school officials, prohibiting certain governing bodies from using certain methods to sponsor and or operate a charter school, authorizing all employers to provide paid leave for certain employees to attend certain school meetings, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 346, introduced by Senator Spearman, an act relating to motor vehicles, authorizing certain acts and transactions to be conducted through an electronic branch office established by the Department of Motor Vehicles, revising requirements relating to certificates of registration and certificates of title of a vehicle, eliminating by limitations on the persons authorized to participate in a program established by the Department for electronic submission and storage of documents, requiring the Department to design, prepare, and issue special license plates for all vehicles that are wholly powered by an electric motor, and reducing the fees for those special license plates, authorizing the use of electronic signatures and stamps for recording certain information for certain transactions, prohibiting a person from driving an autocycle upon a highway unless that person holds a driver's license, exempting the driver and passengers of an autocycle from the requirement to wear protective headgear, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 348, introduced by Senators Danyade et al., Assemblyman Gonzalez et al., an act relating to healthcare, requiring written approval to close certain hospitals or convert such a hospital into a different type of health facility, requiring certain facilities that provide emergency medical services to provide certain notice to patients, establishing certain civil penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 349, introduced by Senator Flores, an act relating to document preparation services, authorizing a document preparation service to use the name of the Department of Motor Vehicles in an advertisement under certain circumstances, requiring under certain circumstances a document preparation service to request an amended registration from the Secretary of State, making it unlawful for a person to represent himself or herself as a document preparation service if the person is not registered as a document preparation service, setting forth the form for statements that must be included in any advertisement for services of a document preparation service, authorizing under certain circumstances the Secretary of State to suspend or revoke the registration of a document preparation service or to assess a civil penalty, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 352, introduced by Senator Scheibel et al., an act relating to healthcare, clarifying that a pharmacy benefit manager is subject to certain provisions of law governing an insurer for which the pharmacy benefit manager manages prescription drug coverage, expanding required insurance coverage of contraception, authorizing certain persons and entities to acquire controlled substances and dangerous drugs directly from an outsourcing facility, revising requirements governing the dispensing of a drug used for contraception, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 355, introduced by Senators Lang and Hammond, an act relating to financial services, prohibiting the Commissioner of Financial Institutions from requiring an applicant for a license to establish a new depository institution to identify the physical address of the proposed depository institution in the application for the license, authorizing certain persons employed by the financial institutions to temporarily delay certain financial transactions involving the suspected exploitation of an older person or vulnerable person, exempting certain persons from liability for certain actions relating to the suspected exploitation of an older person or vulnerable person, authorizing the employee of a person licensed to engage in the business of lending in the state to perform certain work from a remote location under certain circumstances, setting forth various requirements concerning such work performed at a remote location, requiring the person licensed to engage in the business of lending in the state to provide notice to the Attorney General and certain other persons of certain breaches of security involving personal information, revising the circumstances under which a person is not required to accept and acknowledge power of attorney and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 359, introduced by Senators Orenshall and Krasner, an act relating to juvenile justice, revising provisions relating to community service ordered for a child who is subject to the jurisdiction of the juvenile court, revising provisions relating to the driving privileges of certain children who are adjudicated delinquent or in the need of supervision, revising provisions relating to an agreement for informal supervision and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 370, introduced by Senators Cannizzaro et al. An act relating to data privacy, requiring certain entities to develop, maintain, and make available on the Internet a policy concerning the privacy of consumer health data, prohibiting such an entity from collecting or sharing consumer health data without the affirmative, voluntary consent of a consumer in certain circumstances, requiring such an entity to perform certain actions upon the request of a consumer, requiring such an entity to establish a process to appeal the denial of such a request, requiring such an entity to take certain actions to protect the security of consumer health data, limiting the circumstances under which a processor is authorized to process consumer health data, requiring a processor to assist certain entities in complying with certain requirements, prohibiting a person from selling or offering to sell consumer health data under certain circumstances, prohibiting the implementation of a geofence under certain circumstances, prohibiting the discrimination against a consumer for certain reasons, authorizing certain civil enforcement, requiring certain persons to develop, maintain, and make publicly available a policy concerning the storage and retention of biometric identifiers, establishing requirements governing storing, transmitting, protecting, collecting, and sharing biometric identifiers, prohibiting the sale of a biometric identifier, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 384, introduced by Senator Daley, an act relating to broadband, establishing certain requirements for a state agency that awards grants of federal money for the development of broadband services and infrastructure, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 391, introduced by Senators Harris, Assemblyman Watson, Backus, an act relating to governmental entities, revising provisions prohibiting certain counties, cities, and unincorporated towns from sounding sirens, bells, or alarms for certain purposes, establishing civil penalties for violations of such prohibitions, authorizing the Attorney General to bring a civil action to recover such penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 393, introduced by Senators Severs Gansert, an act relating to insurance, revising the circumstances under which a rate paid for dental coverage is presumed to be excessive, establishing certain procedures to enforce the prohibition on imposing excessive rates for dental coverage, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 394, introduced by the Senate Committee on Revenue and Economic Development, an act relating to taxation, limiting the total amount of certain abatements and partial abatements of taxes, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 404, introduced by the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to elections, revising provisions relating to the challenge of a person applying to vote, authorizing a county or city clerk to order that the count of returns for early voting begin on or after the first day of early voting, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 406, introduced by the Senate Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections, an act relating to elections, making it unlawful for a person to use or threaten to attempt to use any force, intimidation, coercion, violence, restraint, or undue influence with the intent to interfere with the performance of duties of an elections official or retaliate against an elections official for the performance of such duties, making it unlawful to disseminate certain information about an elections official, providing penalties, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 407, introduced by Senator Orenshall, an act relating to personal financial administration, revising provisions that govern estates of deceased persons, revising provisions governing the notice of sale of certain property, authorizing a petitioner to submit a notice through an electronic filing system pursuant to the Nevada Electronic Filing and Conversion Rules, making certain information concerning trusts confidential, revising provisions governing the classification of distribution of interest, revising the powers exercisable by the protector of a trust, revising provisions relating to the jurisdiction of a venue of a trust, clarifying provisions relating to a notice provided by the trustee, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 415, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to juvenile justice, setting forth the circumstances in which a juvenile court may place a child on probation, limiting the period of time during which a juvenile court may place a child on probation, authorizing under certain circumstances a juvenile court to extend the probation of a child, and providing other matters properly laid thereto. Senate Bill 417, introduced by the Senate Committee on Judiciary, an act relating to common interest communities, revising provisions relating to the requirement that the executive board of a unit owners association make certain records available for review at a designated location, requiring the unit owners to pay the actual costs incurred by the association, and providing such records under certain circumstances, prohibiting certain persons from taking retaliatory action against a unit owners association or certain other persons associated with the association, prohibiting certain persons within a common interest community from bullying another person within that same common interest community, revising the definition of the term violation relating to violations of the laws governing common interest communities, authorizing the Commission for Common Interest Communities and Condominium Hotels to impose certain sanctions on a person who files certain affidavits with the Real Estate Division of the Department of Business and Industry, requiring the division to take certain actions before referring an affidavit relating to a violation to the Ombudsman for the owners in common interest communities and condominium hotels, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 422, introduced by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to public safety, establishing provisions governing the operation of a personal delivery device, imposing certain requirements on a personal delivery device operator, providing a civil penalty, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 423, introduced by the Senate Committee on Growth and Infrastructure, an act relating to motorcycles, revising provisions relating to penalties for driving without a motorcycle driver's license, motorcycle endorsement, or permit to operate a motorcycle, establishing certain requirements for the renewal of a motorcycle endorsement to a driver's license, revising certain requirements for instructors for the program for the education of motorcycle riders, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 427, introduced by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, and act relating to occupational safety, revising the requirements of written safety programs in certain workplaces to include programs and training related to the mitigation of heat, illness, and exposure to poor air quality, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 429, introduced by the Senate Committee on Government Affairs, an act relating to economic development, requiring certain new or expanding businesses to provide certain paid family and medical leave to employees in order to qualify for a partial abatement of certain taxes, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 433, introduced by Senator Daley, an act relating to prevailing wages, revising provisions governing the payment of prevailing wages, and providing other matters properly in there too. Senate Bill 434, introduced by Senator Neal, an act relating to retirement, revising provisions governing eligibility for membership in the Public Employees Retirement System, revising provisions governing the options for service retirement allowances under the system, revising provisions relating to the granting of a divorce, revising provisions governing the disposition of certain pension or retirement benefits upon dissolution of marriage, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 436, introduced by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to insurance, requiring the Commissioner of Insurance to submit to the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Commerce and Labor a report concerning the service contract provider industry in the state, and providing other matters properly laid there too. Senate Bill 437, introduced by the Senate Committee on Commerce and Labor, an act relating to accountants, revising provisions governing the registration by the Nevada State Board of Accountancy of partnerships, corporations, limited liability companies, and sole proprietorships, revising requirements for a person to take an examination for and to obtain a certificate of certified public accountant, removing the requirement that the board charge a fee for an examination for a certificate of certified public accountant, and providing other matters properly in there too.
Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that all Senate bills read and introduced as listed on the Senate Bills Introduction List dated April 26, 2023, be referred to the committees as indicated on that list.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will go to Order of Business 15, remarks from the floor. Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, we are celebrating and honoring Denim Day. Denim Day was a day that was created over 30 years ago in Italy after a case where they justified a woman being raped because of the denim that she was wearing. And the Italy legislature showed up in jeans. And so today, we honor victims of sexual violence by wearing denim as well, and stand in solidarity, because we know that jeans isn't a reason for anyone to be a victim of sexual violence. Nor dresses, nor anything we wear, regardless of who we're with, or what messages we were sending, or if we're intoxicated, or if we were able to successfully stop it, or regardless of how long we wait to come forward. And so with that, I appreciate and respect everyone for showing up today in denim, and we need to continue the work to prevent sexual violence in our community. I'll ask for a personal privilege as well. I'd like to recognize my guest on the floor today, Dr. Yvette Alava. If you could go ahead and rise for me. Dr. Yvette Alava is somebody that I have known for over a decade, and y'all are thinking I'm pretty young, so that means it's been a long, long time in my life, and she has had a significant impact. She has dedicated her life to service. Not only is she a professor at UNLV, not only is she a social worker, but I had the opportunity to meet her when I was a high school student, and she mentored me and provided guidance to me, and she continued to do so to over hundreds of students in Southern Nevada as she led the Latino Youth Leadership Conference for many, many years, and we are so lucky to have her in our state and continuing to make an impact. So thank you so much for all you do. I know that I wouldn't be here without your role model, without you being a role model and a mentor in our community. Thank you. If you could give her a warm welcome.
Assemblywoman Marzola.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today on the floor with me, I have my intern, Valeria Hernandez. She is originally from Las Vegas, but moved to Reno to attend UNR. She is a first-generation college student, majoring in political science with a minor in philosophy, and will be graduating early this fall. She plans to go to law school, and after becoming a lawyer, she wants to work on public policy reform as it relates to education, healthcare, and immigration. One of the things she's passionate about is giving back to the Latino community. In her free time, she enjoys listening to music, playing her guitar, art, traveling, and spending time with her twin sister. Please help me make her feel welcome.
Assemblywoman Summers Armstrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mankind has been heating up meals with hot sauce for generations. Experts agree that hot sauce dates back as far as Mayan times. The first commercially available bottled hot sauce in America appeared in Massachusetts in 1807, and many of us are familiar with Tabasco sauce, which appeared in about 1868. Why in the world are we talking about hot sauce, you may ask? Well, today, our colleague from Assembly District 19 is celebrating a seminal birthday. And unlike the traditional sweet treats that I like to bring forth, this particular colleague likes it, as they said in a 1959 movie with Marilyn Monroe, Jack Lemmon, and Tony Curtis, some like it hot. Let's see. So the beautiful spouse of our colleague in Department 19 told us, the hotter the better. Believe it or not, there is actually a standard for measuring the levels of spiciness called the Scoville scale. Handpicked from the list of the top 5 hottest hot sauces in the world, we are gifting our colleague with numbers 7 and 3. Let's give him a wonderful round of applause to celebrate his birthday. And after the floor, there are some hot treats in the caucus room for those of you who have the courage to try. Happy birthday.
Assemblyman Hibbets.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been asked to read a special message for the Assemblyman from District 19 from his wife, with your permission. Remember, this is coming from your wife, not from me. Last week, I had the distinct pleasure of sitting on the Assembly floor with my husband, Toby Urich, and was both honored and embarrassed over the beautiful introduction he gave me. Today, I have the opportunity to return the favor. Since I cannot be there in person, I must request the assistance of this distinguished body to help me celebrate a very important occasion. Today is Toby's 50th birthday. I have been blessed to know him for over half of our lives. I have watched him become a wonderful father, an amazing leader, and a dedicated servant to our community and the state of Nevada. He is the love of my life and my best friend. I'm a bit jealous that I have had to share him with all of you for the past 80 days, but the good news is that the session is 2/3 done today. Thank you for allowing me to share these sentiments today and for helping me let Toby know just how much he is missed and loved. Happy birthday, Toby. The boys and I love you so much. Happy birthday, my friend.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to remind my colleagues about a party that we're having tonight to celebrate the Assemblyman from District 4, who will officially become an octogenarian this weekend. Celebration is tonight at the bank. It starts at 5:30, so we'll be done at 8:30. Plenty of time for you to go night-night. The woman our colleague lives with, aka his wife, will also be in attendance. Additionally, we'll celebrate a big birthday from our colleague in AD 19. So those of you not in ways, I hope you can join us. Thank you.
Two birthdays, one bank. Sounds like a good time. Assemblywoman Howdigi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Some announcements for the floor. I want to thank everyone who participated in Denim Day today. It's also Hospital Day at the Legislature. And don't forget, the Tourism Caucus is meeting at 5 p.m. in room 3100. Tomorrow we have a lot going on here. We have Ben Graham's famous cookies, so his family will be here to honor his tradition. Professional Firefighters of Nevada's Fallen Firefighter Memorial event and reception is taking place tomorrow. We also have the Recovery Advocacy Day, the Shopai Tribe of Duck Valley Legislative Day, conversations on education from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Fox, and Cook Photography will be here at the Legislature on Thursday, April 27th, to take group photographs. Assembly members and the chief clerk of the Assembly will need to meet outside at the front, the west side of the building at 8:30 a.m. sharp. Okay, I do want to let the members know that Tuesday, May 2nd, next week, is Alumni Day. So we'll have former legislators who will report to the House in which they last served and sit on the floor with current members. Following the floor session, current legislators and alumni are invited to a luncheon at the Nevada State Railroad Museum. A letter with more information was left on your desk, so please make sure to read it and to RSVP to the appropriate person. I do want to let afternoon committees know that if you were scheduled to meet, please report to your afternoon committee immediately upon the adjournment of floor. So I believe that's the Committee on Health and Human Services and the Committee on Commerce and Labor. With that, Mr. Speaker, I will move that we stand adjourned until Thursday, April 27th at the hour of 27th, 2023 at the hour of 11:30 a.m.
Assemblywoman Howdigi has moved that the Assembly stand adjourned until Thursday, April 27, 2023 at the hour of 11:30 a.m. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.